let's get back to the subject at hand, which is now that mini camps, OTAs, and all that good stuff is complete. The 5 things that you are most eager to see when the NFL season does start. Danny Cunningham went through his 5 in segment 1. Manny Hill, it's your turn from 5 to 1. So starting at number 5, what are you most eager to see when we do get started here?
I'm very intrigued by the Dallas Cowboys. Jason Garrett's been there a long time, Judd. We talked about Mike Tomlin being there for a long time with the Steelers, and you just wonder, how much is left there. Jason Garrett, man, I think it's time. I think it's time to really figure out. They need to have, I think, a really, really good season, I think, to justify continuing having Jason Garrett.
Is this Stephen Jones? There's no way that Jerry Jones is this patient, right? I know Jerry talks a lot, but Stephen, his son, has taken way more control, I think, of that pseudo GM job there. Mm-hmm. This has to be him, right? Jerry Jones blows out.
He ran Jimmy Johnson out.
I know.
After winning 2 Super Bowls.
Well, because he thought he was the football expert. Jerry did.
Yeah.
But this has to be a byproduct of the kid being like, no, firing the coach doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I just, because it's amazing to me. And, look, they made the playoffs last year and they won a playoff game and all of that. But, man, I just, when you look at the talent, and some of it's hype too, because it's the Dallas Cowboys and they get talked about a lot. But the hype surrounding Dak Prescott and the hype surrounding Zeke Elliott and just all the coverage and attention that they get. And it's just really been hollow. They had a really good season a couple of years ago, 13-3, I think it was, when Zeke had that great year and Dak took over for Romo. But then they blew that game against the Packers in the playoffs. Part of that was because of Aaron Rodgers being amazing. But, it's been a lot of bark and no bite for the Dallas Cowboys, really, for a decade plus. And I just think it's time now for them to really start to deliver the goods. Don't just be 10-6 and get bounced from the playoffs. Show me something to really justify all the attention that you're getting.
And this is essentially the year that we decide if Dak gets paid, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what this comes down to.
That's going to be a big part of it.
And it's weird because it's the Cowboys, and you would think the answer would be most definitely he will. Mm-hmm. But so far, I don't think we're seeing that.
Yeah. And I wonder if they're waiting to see how he performs and see what kind of season that they have this year. And that might be the determining factor on Jason Garrett's future and what they decide to do with Dak Prescott.
And the Zeke dynamic is interesting to me, too, because at that position, it's rare that you get extended runs of success. The Petersons of the world are few and far between.
Mm-hmm. Those guys are basically gone now.
And so a guy like Zeke is in that very brief window in a running back's life where you either do it or you just get fried.
And I wonder if they're just gonna. I've heard Collar talk about this last week, but I wonder if they're just gonna run him as much as they possibly can, get the most out of him, and then when he's 27, 28 years old and his body's cooked, then they're just gonna say, all right, well, see you later. They did that with DeMarco Murray. Mm-hmm. They ran him into the ground for that one season. He had a great year, led the league in rushing, ran for 1,800 yards, and see you later.
Yep.
Off to Philly you go.
And you last how long after that? A couple of years?
Yeah.
Peterson is a remarkable story.
He's an outlier now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Number 4 on your list.
Number 4, you'll like this question. Because all of these are basically centered around questions, too. You'll like this. Can Nick Foles, we've seen him overcome a lot. He's multiple stints with the Eagles, Super Bowl MVP with the Eagles. Great story. He had to deal with Jeff Fisher with the St. Louis/LA Rams. Can Nick Foles in 2019 overcome Doug Marrone, Tom Coughlin, and John DeFilippo?
And I think the answer is most definitely no chance.
This is going to be. I'm so intrigued by this.
The only hope I think he has is if that defense goes back to being its dominant self of 2017. Mm-hmm. But we've seen Nick Foles try this before too.
I know.
It didn't end well. He almost retired from football after that Jeff Fisher-led stint with the Rams. Mm-hmm. I think if you are putting this on Nick Foles and saying, go to it, buddy, you're in a world of trouble.
Because now there's expectations. He's gotten paid.
Yep.
And he's been handed the keys to the car right away.
Manny, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as when Nick Foles left Philadelphia the first time.
Yep.
It's the same story.
Yep. It's the exact same thing. And that situation with that head coach and Coughlin's not the GM. He's like what is he, like the vice president of something? But he's
He
got
runs the football side.
yeah. But he's 70 some years old and probably still has some of that old school thought process when it comes to building a team. And John DeFilippo, I mean, how good an offensive coordinator is he? He wasn't good here, wasn't good in Cleveland.
I have no clue.
Now he's reunited with Nick Foles again. What is that going to look like?
I don't think he's probably that good.
Yeah, probably not. All right, number 3, the Green Bay Packers are very, very, very intriguing to me. Can Aaron Rodgers have a bounce back year? He wasn't that good last year.
That's
now,
on my list too. I agree.
You look at the numbers and they're not bad numbers, but by his standards, they weren't that good. And obviously the team was 6-9-1. They fired Mike McCarthy. They were, they're moving on to a different head coach. Matt LaFleur, I mean, he's associated with Sean McVay, so there's always that. You're always going to have that too. How is Aaron Rodgers going to be re-energized now with a new head coach and a new system in place? Is that going to re-energize him and motivate him a little bit more? I do like the moves that they made on defense in free agency.
Mhm.
Their draft was a little odd, but I'm curious to see if Aaron Rodgers is going to be re-energized by this new, fresh, young head coach that's going to have new offensive ideas. They made some moves on defense to improve. Are the Packers going to bounce back from last year?
And I think the question too regarding a quarterback is Rodgers basically empowered to become the OC?
Mm-hmm.
You got the feeling that McCarthy tried to run things his way, and
he wasn't going to change.
And at first, Aaron was okay because he was young and he was getting the opportunity, and I think that began to wear on Aaron. But Aaron's to the point now of, does LaFleur essentially say, "It's your show. I got ideas. So do you. Let's sit down and meld them." The interesting thing, because I actually have this same thing third on my list. The interesting thing about LaFleur's resume was he was Matt Ryan's position coach in Atlanta during Ryan's MVP season. But we've seen that before from quarterback coaches. DeFilippo.
Yep.
Musgrave.
Yep.
Musgrave was in Atlanta when Atlanta was having success offensively. Same job. Quarterbacks coach. LaFleur then spent 2017 as McVay's OC. There's the association of, you must know a lot because you know Sean McVay. But then he went and became the OC at Tennessee last year. Mariota was not great, and the Titans did 27th in scoring offense. So, but if you have Rodgers and you turn him loose, and to use your word, he's re-energized, that makes a world of difference. So I think that I think the Packers are one of the most intriguing teams in the league, as far as not knowing what you're going to get, but the upside could be fantastic, but you don't know that for sure.
I really like what they did on defense.
Because it's about time, right, Manny?
Yeah, I mean, it's been forever. I mean, it's what'd you call it? The Ted Thompson bin forever, that they would go and just when Ted was running the team, they would go in and just get like the cheap guy that you didn't really think a whole lot of. They didn't make a lot of big splashes in free agency,
they got
especially on defense.
In 2000, was it 2010? They got Woodson.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he was in the second wave. He didn't get signed immediately. So I think he was in the second wave of the free agency period in like 2010 or so.
And he ended up outplaying what they were paying him. He was
absolutely great.
Yeah.
And Julius Peppers.
Yep.
But for the most part, Ted hated to spend.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm them making moves and being active in free agency for the first time in a really long time makes me think that things are going to be a little bit different there, and if they're going to be a factor in the division.
If they win the division, it's not going to surprise me one bit.
Won't shock me either. All right, number 2, Kyler Murray. How soon does he play? I tend to think he's going to play right away. And will the Cardinals be better? I mean, Kliff Kingsbury, it's another one of those. Oh, he knows Sean McVay. He's associated with Sean McVay. He's young. He's an offensive guy. Let's bring him in. Let's give him a shot. Okay, well, they've gotten their quarterback now. They've moved on from the Josh Rosen situation. That whole thing's been resolved. He's now in Miami, and I'm curious how that goes too down there. But how soon do we see Kyler Murray? How good is he? Will the Cardinals be improved? They were a complete dumpster fire last year. I tend to think they will be better just by default. just because they were so bad last year. But I still don't think they're going to be very good. That's the only thing.
The Kingsbury hire to me is a huge risk.
Mm-hmm.
He got fired as a head coach in college. He got the USC OC job.
Yep.
He quit that to come to the Cardinals. I sense that the Cardinals, because we've got McVay disciples have gone to Green Bay, Cincinnati with the kid who was his quarterback's
Zach
coach,
Taylor, yep.
who's a young guy. I sense the biggest reach. It might be the Bengals, but I think it's Kingsbury.
Yeah.
To trust that he can now step it, because these jobs are tough as hell.
Mm-hmm.
And to go from the college ranks because you think you know offense, that's a big reach.
And he failed in college.
Yeah,
like,
but the fact
let's
that
be
McVay,
honest, he failed at Texas Tech.
The worst thing that teams can see is McVay in this sense. He makes it look easy. And he's incredibly bright. And he is good for him. It's great. But you see that and you're like, well, let's just go find the next Sean McVay. Well, that's really not easy to do.
How do we know Sean McVay is not one of a kind?
Yeah, and the Cardinals, I sense, and I don't know how good, and I don't think he's great. Their GM, what is Steve Keim is?
Mm-hmm.
The Cardinals they're getting cute, for lack of a better term. They're getting cute here.
Mm-hmm.
And now if you brought in Kingsbury as your OC with ideas, I think that might work. But he's going to run your whole program here. And he's got a young quarterback who's going to need some work, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
This to me, of all of the reaches that we've seen since the season came to an end, this might be the top one.
You have a head coach who failed at his one head coaching opportunity in college, never coached in the NFL. Your number one overall pick, while he has a ton of upside, and I think he is going to be very good, he only has 1 year of starting experience in college.
Right.
And there are questions about the physical ability. I mean, I don't like the talk about height, but that is a question mark about Kyler Murray. And it's a roster that's just depleted of, I mean, I love Larry Fitz. We all love Larry Fitz, but overall, this is a roster that's
I feel bad.
Not very talented.
I feel bad for Larry.
Yeah.
The other thing with Murray that would really concern me is this. He's the type of quarterback you can ruin.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen QBs be ruined before. But by the time you're far enough down the path to say that they are ruined, you don't know what's what at that point. But they're done. And it is remarkable when you think that what, in 2018 they traded up, correct, to take Rosen in that draft?
Mm-hmm.
And then a year later, you turn around and audible out of that entire thing.
Punt on that. And
you do this. And if Kingsbury's good, it's going to look absolutely genius. But if Kingsbury's bad and this team is as bad as we think, and let's just take a pick and say Kyler Murray starting by week 3, if he spends the season getting hit, losing games, that becomes a major concern of, okay, not only are you not developing him, but there's a chance that he is regressing before you. And then the question becomes, when do you get him out of there to not have it be a long-term problem?
It is basically, it's the epitome of high risk, high reward, right? If it works out,
but I don't trust they're doing it right.
Right, exactly.
That's the problem.
If this works out, it could be special. It could be phenomenal. But if it doesn't, it seems like it's going to be a complete, total disaster. Okay, number 1, and Judd, I don't know if you'll get too many arguments from me on this. The Oakland Raiders. I'm so intrigued by everything about this football team right now. We've got the last year in Oakland. We've got, Gruden and Mayock running the show. What are they going to look like? You got Antonio Brown into the mix now. They're going to be on Hard Knocks this summer. Everything about the Oakland Raiders just has me just salivating at how, I don't know how good they're going to be. I don't know how bad they're going to be, but I am dying to find out.
Well, and you almost don't care because either way, it's going to be great fun to watch.
Yes.
I have no clue if Gruden still has a fastball.
Yeah. I don't know.
Zero clue.
We don't know because he doesn't have his quarterback, right? Like,
well,
Carr,
and but he was also out of this game. This game has changed greatly, drastically since he last coached until last year. And I can't figure out if, he's got a great strategy here, This is somewhat like if Madden had come back and coached.
Yeah.
At some point in time, you'd be like,
it would have been the exact same thing.
John, you should have stayed in TV.
And you've got two guys that come out of the TV booth
I don't
and
trust,
are running this team.
I have serious reservations about Mike Mayock.
Mm-hmm.
But I also don't know if he's got any control here because Gruden is so hands-on. But watching this thing, when it comes to Gruden, I have no idea. He was at one time a really good coach, and I have no clue if he's been able to sort of update his style to be effective now, or if that act that we saw on TV is still the act, and players are like, yeah, this doesn't work for me. Yeah. And Antonio Brown's going to push that to the limits.
See, and that's
and what
the other
happens
thing.
when Carr doesn't get him the ball?
Mm-hmm.
The two receivers that I am so curious to see how they react when things don't go well, and this is not going to be a surprise to you, Odell Beckham,
mm-hmm.
and Baker's not going to take any crap.
Right.
And Odell's not going to take any crap back from Baker. But when
can Freddie Kitchens handle that?
Yes. And I have a feeling that it might be tough. But anyway, so that's one. And then two is what you're saying. Antonio Brown, if Derek Carr screws up or Derek Carr has a bad game or Antonio Brown deems that he is wide open on the 5-yard line and does not get the ball, guess what he's not going to do? Keep his mouth shut.
And with Derek Carr, too.
And Gruden will be yelling at Carr at the same time Antonio Brown is what's going to happen.
Yeah, and Derek Carr, look, his career is kind of at a crossroads right now, right? There's questions about is he a legitimate guy that you can have as your franchise quarterback? A couple of years ago, there was a thought, yeah, he could be. He was an MVP candidate.
They signed
him
a
couple of years ago. They paid him.
He got the contract. He'd be gone now. He'd be gone now if they hadn't paid him.
Yeah.
Gruden, I'm sure, would have loved to run him.
Right. And now it's like, well, how does Gruden really feel about him? Does Gruden really like him? I don't know if anybody's really sure about that. And if he doesn't perform well, are they going to try and move on from him? They're moving into Vegas after this season. That's going to be eventful and crazy. The Raiders, I'm chomping at the bit for them.
If Derek Carr is not up to what Gruden and Brown, I guess, expect in 2019, you got to think that their first year in Vegas, they have a different quarterback, right?
Yeah, I would think so. If they're 5-11, 4-12 again, or something like that, they'll take a quarterback.
Because they're going to try that first year. They are going to try and make some type of splash.
Yeah, I think so.